hopefully hopefully the students will be hearing me talk right now as it's setting up the meeting room. That's one of the issues I don't like with this particular thing. Be hearing me talk right now as it's setting up the meeting room, and they are. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure that what's in Piazza is what we're actually broadcasting with. So let's check that. Sorry for the delay. If you're watching this very staggeringly interesting video here we're having. Yeah. Okay. So we are on. All of that was, that was fun for everyone, I'm sure. And we're getting started 10 minutes late. So hopefully by now, those of you who are watching are seeing me. I'm Dr. Wilcox, and with me, as always, is, I'll let him introduce himself.
Dr. McClellan here, and I figure our viewership on this is probably close to the Super Bowl, roughly. Ooh. Probably about the same numbers we're getting.
That was really not wise of us.
No, but
that does say a little bit about my knowledge of the balls and the fields. And
yeah, no, me too. I'm terrible, but I figure the people running the Super Bowl will be, they'll be mad at us for taking away such massive numbers of their viewership.
Yeah, this is our 30-second commercial here. 10 minutes of us flailing around. So clearly I have a board game problem, so you know a little bit about me. And Professor McClellan has a child, so he's broadcasting from his customary office in the restroom there. So you know a little bit about us.
I live in a small apartment, and this is my only refuge right now.
Yeah, for now.
For now, until I
reach the doorknob eventually.
Yeah, and there's tape on the doorknob to prevent him from locking himself in the bathroom.
Oh, that's interesting. I would not think that was a problem, but I would suspect it would become a very large problem.
I had a moment of true terror contemplating it, if he was somehow in here and harming himself, and I'm out there locked out, unable to get in and help.
Oh, now we're getting, not only do you know a little bit about us, you know a little bit about our psychology. Okay, so we should move on to actually talking about Music 133. And so welcome. We'll probably be sending out some messages now and again, and you'll be hearing from us, but it's good to put names to faces and know that we're real people, that we're really here, and that we're interested in hearing from you. We're interested in your success. All of you, all 420 something of you.
Wow.
So this is probably a record for us, by far the most we've had at the same time. So please be patient with us. Realize that each one of us is handling over 200 people taking the course. And for the love of God, just tell us what section you're in. When you go to Canvas, when you go to your dashboard, we'll say Music 133, section 90, 91, 92. Just tell us. Because if you don't, you have to go and search, and it's not always easy, and it can be a pain and take us a long time, all to figure out that you're not even in one of my sections. You're in Professor McClellan's sections. You should be talking to him. And we're happy to help you if we can, regardless of what section you're in, but it really does streamline the process if you tell us what section you're in. So that's our
first,
yeah.
And likewise, you should know which sections we each manage, so that you know which of us to write to with the question. And again, if you write to the wrong one of us, we'll still help and answer, but it just keeps things a little more organized. So I am in charge of sections 93, 94, and 95. And
I am 90, 91, and 92.
Yes, so we like to have a friendly rivalry as to our respective sections, but we're all one big happy family, and we get along well. So
we do have the tendency to teach the class as sort of a team effort. So we're I'll be in all the sections, messing with settings and doing things in Canvas that need to be done. And Professor McClellan will be, active in Piazza, probably a little bit more than me. And so we're here, both of us, to serve you. But when it comes time to actually, if you have a question about your grade or something to do with that, just write to the instructor who is part of your class. That also helps us balance, because if everybody's writing to me or if everybody's writing to Robin, things get a little chaotic for us and it becomes harder. Also, there's a lot of you. So if you don't hear back from us right away, it could be that we were planning to make an announcement about what you're asking us about, like an extension, or we just got a ton of email and we missed it. So please go ahead and poke us again, or put it in Piazza, and we'll get to it just as soon as we can. We like to answer emails within a day. Sometimes, depending, it might take two. And the reason is that both Professor McClellan and I have day jobs. We are both fully qualified PhDs from very good schools, but we have day jobs because that happens sometimes.
Well, we're part-time with Rutgers, so
yeah, we're part-time, full-time.
As is true in many,
we're full
with many
part-time
professors.
We teach a whole lot, but we're still part-time.
Yes.
So things to keep in mind. Is there anything you want to talk about before I mention some other things?
I just wanted to give a really quick mention that we've been running this. We built this course about almost 10 years ago, and we've run it every semester and some summer sections, and thousands of students have come through this course. We're continually improving it. But if you get frustrated and you wonder how could this course be designed this way, or why is this assignment done this way, just remember that it's these are battle tested assignments, and they're done a certain way for usually good reasons. But that said, if you have an issue or something's confusing, please let us know, because that always helps us improve further. But also, if you get frustrated, know that thousands of other students have been frustrated and they have found their way through the course and have done very well. So feel that you're in good company. You're not a pioneer breaking new ground. You're going over something that many people have done, and many people have done well with after some work.
Just to chime in on that, the median score for people in this class is a 90, about a 90. So that means that at least half the class gets an A. That's not any guarantee. That just ends up to be the way the percentages break out. But the vast majority of the class gets an A or a B. As long as they complete all the work, there's usually not much trouble. That's because you're allowed to do the homework over and over and over and over and over again.
Yep.
And you think, well, that's very nice of us. But honestly, we just want you to practice. If you don't understand it, try it again. But what we don't want you to do is guess. So if you've spent an hour on a homework assignment and you're not seeing what you did wrong, two things to do. One is to take a screenshot of the one you're having trouble with, and two, and to email it to us. So take a screenshot to email us. And number two is tell us what section you're in. So that section thing is really important. Tell us what section you're in, tell us what you're having trouble with, and we'll try to answer the questions rather than you beating your head against the wall. Because the fact of the matter is, it is not our intention, nor is it any instructor's intention, for you to do the homework without doing the lesson. So a lot of times people will try the homework and they'll think, I'm going to use a trial and error method to figure out how this works. And they guess and they guess and they guess and they guess, and they'll take assignments 13 times because they're guessing, and they'll say, I don't get it, and I've been doing this over and over again. But they never actually read the lesson. And we know this because we can go in and say, oh, well, the big problem you're having is you didn't actually read the lesson. So just go ahead and read the lesson, and you'll be golden. You'll be super duper. And then if you still have trouble, write us an email, include your section, take a couple screenshots, because almost every assignment uses a quiz bank. So your question 13 is going to be different than anybody else's.
Just want to quickly explain what that means, that for every assignment, there's many, many more questions than you see. And then the software, Canvas software, is randomly selecting which ones of those you see. So you may get...
It's not random. It selects the ones that will torture you the most.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot that detail. But whatever it is, it's different from what your friend got. It's a different set. So your number 13 is a different question than theirs.
Yeah, it likes your friend.
Right.
But you are different. Your friend gets the easy ones.
No, it's not that smart. It's not artificial intelligence.
It's not smart at all.
It's just a random algorithm.
Right.
But another thing to generally talk about is the question of needing musical background. And many people come into this course feeling like, oh, how could I possibly succeed if I don't, if I don't have any previous musical training? And this is a big topic. We probably shouldn't get into it in detail, but
I actually want to get into this one in detail because I actually did the math this time.
So, yeah. So I'll let you, let me give the very short version and I'll let you take it away. Basically, those of you with no musical background can do very well if you do the work. Those with musical background can also do very well, but may or may not do well. It's no guarantee of doing well in the course. And having no musical background, you are 100% qualified and likely and in a good position to do very well in the course.
Yeah, so I'm actually, some of you have noticed, well, all of you have noticed that you took a nice little survey. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, I'm just going to assume that's true. And one of the reasons we wanted to do an entry survey, among other things, is to kind of get a baseline of who's taking the course and what it can tell us about what people do, what people know. And so whenever you see a chart, it looks scary, but it actually is not very scary. So what this tells us, if we look in the circle on the top, this is the big story. We see that percentages by the amount of musical training you have approximately. And this represents about half the people taking the course right now. So about half the sample. But of the people in the course, 35% of you have had considerable musical training, 7+ years. That means you probably started playing in 3rd grade and played all the way through high school, maybe a little longer. And 4 to 6 of you have had 4 to 6 years, which means, again, middle school through high school. So quite a few have had a lot of musical training. But 40% of the class has had some, less though, okay? So large percentage of the class has quite a bit of musical training. So you probably think, well, this will be fairly easy. And then only about 14% of the class have said they've had no musical training, and 11% that says they've had 11% musical training. So if you're the person who's in the 14%, you might be feeling pretty uncomfortable right now because you think, well, look, 86% of the class has had some musical experience. But let me tell you, that doesn't mean as much as you think it means. Honestly, it does not. And what we found is, statistically speaking, in terms of how you did on those pre-tests, there's not a lot of difference between having 0 years training and having 3 years training. You really do just about the same, just following your intuition. Because in this group, pretty much most people are mostly guessing the whole way through in terms of that pre-test. They have some ideas. The 2 and 3 year old students, they did a little better on those first note identification questions. Maybe they did a little better in treble. They didn't know bass. But this whole bottom 40% of the class didn't do as well. I mean, did about the same. And similarly, the 4 to 7+ years, they did about the same. So let's look at what I can actually say. And I'm just going to look at the correctness rate. So if I look at Unit 1, those note identifications, people with a lot of training did really well in Unit 1. But as soon as we got to Unit 2, the numbers dropped off precipitously. So they might be able to identify notes. And I can teach you to identify notes in about 15 minutes with accuracy. But it's so that they have that mastered, and you could see that 0 years get 21% right, and it climbs up to 86% for that first one. But what that means is the first 5 or 6 lessons, which you've probably already done, and if you've been successful at it, you're doing about as well as someone with 7 years training at that point, right? But in unit 2, almost no one got. So a lot of people got the first question right, about 3/4 meter. Most people said, well, that's 3 beats and 4 quarter notes, 3/4, 3/4, that one. But the 6/8, like 2 people in the entire sample got that right. So what this tells me is that even people with 7+ years of training who are very comfortable in playing with meters like 6/8 don't know how they work. So if you think, oh, I've got no training, how am I going to compete against people with 7 years training? Well, in some areas, they need to learn the material too. And by the time we get to unit 3, everyone from 0 years to 6 years are pretty much doing about the same. In unit 3, when we start saying key signatures and scales, people with 4 to 6 years, they know their major scales, maybe their key signatures, but they don't know anything else. And the same is true with people with 7+ years of training. They might know their major key signatures, but they really don't know their minors. And neither one of them know how they work together. And generally speaking, after that point, what we see is statistically insignificant. The number of choices in later units decrease, and so people start to guess. So the takeaway message is, even people with 7.5 years of training start really seeing things they don't recognize halfway through unit 2. And by the time they get to, and they might do a little better at the beginning of unit 3, but halfway through unit 3, they again hit a roadblock where they don't know. And after that, they've got no exposure to any of it. So that's my experience too. I would have been in the 7+ years, and I didn't know anything through about the first 2 or 3 lessons in unit 3. So you think, well, we expect everyone to get through 6 units, and I didn't even ask you some of those questions. So you think, how do people do it? Well, it's not really that dependent on previous training. And you think, well, why is that true? Most people's previous training is in music performance. They've learned to look at sheet music and read sheet music and perform from sheet music. So that's very much equivalent to learning how to read words on a page and speak them aloud. But if you ask people with a lot of musical training to write music down, to actually put notes on a paper, they make shocking numbers of mistakes, including very basic things about the way notes look, because they've never learned to write this. And comparatively, if you ask someone to read in a language but actually write down words, they can't do it. And I'll tell you, I know this because I've learned to read Spanish to pass a test for my PhD, but I couldn't write a word in Spanish. I have a better idea. So here's the situation you're in. You are competing against a lot of people in this course who've had a lot of experience performing music, but they've had very, very, very little writing music down and figuring out how those words relate to one another. And that's what you're doing in this class. You're writing notes down, you're figuring out how rhythms and notes work together and make chords and scales. And that is something even the most experienced people who come into this class do not have experience with. So let me stop sharing this just for a second and make the final point. The real advantage someone with a lot of musical training has is the ability to look at an individual note and say, that's an A, that's a B flat, that's an E flat, that's an F. That ability to just see a note and identify it is the most important thing that people who've had a lot of musical training can do. Now, I can teach you to look at a note very, very quickly and say, okay, here's the G line, A, B, B line, B flat. But that little bit of time that it took you to count up those notes and then remember that note in your head, that's going to slow you down. So when you're getting into unit 3, where you might have 3 notes on the staff, where's the camera? 1, 2, 3 notes. and you got to figure out what figure out what the first note is, and then go to the second and the third, and then you got to remember those, and you got to twist them. Then all of a sudden, not being able to know notes by sight is a detriment. So our biggest, first of all, let me remind you that most of the class will get an A, because it's not that hard. But the biggest advantage someone who has musical training is, it's not the musical training, it's not the knowledge of music theory, because most people have next to no knowledge of music theory, to be frank. I mean, it's not that their teachers were bad, it's just they were teaching performance, they weren't teaching music theory. The big advantage is the ability to look at a note and say, that's an A, that's a G. And look at a rhythm and say, that's a quarter note, it divides into 2/8 notes. That kind of quick thinking, it's like knowing your alphabet. That's an A. Or knowing very simple words, that's cat, that's dog. That advantage is what people have. So what you want to do in these first couple units is really focus in and make flashcards of the notes and just do them over and over and over again, because you will find that your speed at doing homework in units 3, 4, 5, and 6, which are all note oriented, will be much, much faster. Your ability to do the work will be faster, because you're not trying to store notes information in your head at the same time as figuring out what else we want you to do. So the more time you can spend drilling on notes, learning notes, do those treble and bass clef assignments over and over and over and over and over again. Even if you're getting them correct, even if you've got the answers down, the more you can memorize and internalize note identification, the easier the rest of the course will be. And that is truly the only advantage people with more training have than you. You'll do fine. And I have no idea where Professor McClellan went. Are you there? Were you attacked by the baby?
No, I just was trying to keep quiet and not interrupt.
Was the baby mean to you?
Nope, he's sound asleep, thankfully.
Oh, good. That makes sense, Robin?
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Oh, good. I'm not sure. But please, do not feel intimidated. This is not a hard course. If you just keep up with the homework, ask questions when you need it, you'll be fine. You'll be gold. It's not that big of a deal.
I think the comparison to learning a language is really apt, because it's all about, it literally is learning a new language, actually, but also the process is similar in that you're
a very simple language in comparison.
Yeah, very simple language, but the process is you're drilling these tiny details over and over until they become second nature. Like, I don't have to think every second about the word the if I say the word the. Like, I learned that word and now I can use it freely all the time with barely thinking about it. And so that's what like a note is in this course. Like, you need to learn what a B flat is, and then once that becomes second nature, you can use it in all these different situations.
Like
put
when
it into
I learned
words.
Spanish in college, one of the hardest things is I used to try to translate the word I learned in Spanish into English.
Yeah.
Instead of just knowing the word in Spanish.
Right.
And it made it so much more difficult with my brain to learn it, because I was because instead of learning the word as what it was, I was looking at something, translating it to something else, and then trying to translate it back. And that was a lot of cognitive, a lot of brain work. In fact, it's your frontal lobe in here, probably. So the more you can avoid that, right?
Yep.
Better you'll be. Did you ever have to learn a language in college to pass a test?
I tried to learn Russian.
You'd Russian. Can you do the accent?
No, I learned all I remember is the letters. I can mostly recognize the letters now, but
you didn't learn to speak it, right? You just learned to.
I mean, I tried, but it was just one semester and it was tough. But this is way easier than learning Russian if you're not a Russian speaker.
But you also had that experience of learning to read a language so that you could do translation exercises, which is what you do for the PhD, but not actually being able to write it down at all.
Right,
you
exactly.
Never write in it. You know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what people who've had performance experience will encounter, that they feel like they have a lot of experience, but what they'll see is, and this is something they should pay attention to. If this was me in college, I didn't realize how how much detail went into making the music system work, and how much I didn't understand about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you study a lot of music theory, your hair will get like mine. No, I swam this today. This is my chlorine hair. It's crazy.
So what else should we cover here? Do people have questions? If you ask a question on Piazza, we will answer it in real time.
We will?
But so far, no questions. I'm thinking about, I don't know if it's worth quickly going over a couple assignments or if we should hold off on that.
I think at this point, hopefully people have gone through the first few.
Yeah.
But I think, going through the Ottava assignment and how it relates to, going through, the Ottava assignment and how it relates to the piano might be useful for people, because that's one that people even, like for instance, I played the tuba, and so I never really saw those signs before.
Right.
Trumpet and tuba, I never got high enough to need them above, and I never got low enough to need them below. So I think that's something people could benefit from.
Okay, let me share my screen. Is that showing up okay?
It is. I'm gonna mute.
I'll blow it up a bit. Does it magnify when I magnify on my end? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Okay, so 88 keys on the keyboard. One of the things with all these assignments is just making sure you understand kind of the nuts and bolts of the how the assignment works. And in this case, these numbers you see on the keyboard are not musically meaningful. They're just reference numbers of like what key that is, starting from 1 on the left up to 88. And it's just the way that lets you answer the question and identify a very specific key, because every note on the staff, on the musical staff, is one of those 88 keys. So being able to identify the key is really important. So let me just go through a couple of these. So we have treble clef, and as you know, the clef is just a big fancy letter G, which circles around the second line on the staff, which is a G, and it's the G above middle C. And this green key on the keyboard is middle C. So go up C, D, E, F, G. This white note, the first one in the midst of the 3 black notes is G, and we have the reference number 45. Next note is the black note 46, 47. So that G is number 47. And then this note here is a 7th above that, or 7 notes above that. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F. So we have to go from that G up to F, which is note 57, but then it has a sharp on it. So that's note 58. So far, so good. Now we get to the ottava sign, 8VA, which means 1 octave higher than written. So the note is written as note 58, the F sharp right there. But the ottava means you jump up an entire octave to the next one in the same place in the pattern, which is the F sharp way up here, 69, 70. So that is note 70. So again, it's like learning a language. Like when I was learning Russian, I had to go through so many steps just to read one word. I had to remember what each one of the letters was, go look them up if I couldn't remember, then how they sound together, then string them together, then try to remember what the word meant. Like, it's all these different steps just for this one simple piece of information. Now, a very experienced musician, this has become second nature. So they see that note, they can hit it instantly with their finger, just like a native speaker or a fluent speaker of a language. I'll do one more 8VB means ottava bassa, which means one octave lower than written. So let's find the written note first, and then, just as we did before, I should have sort of said that. The two basic steps are find the written note, then adjust by one octave up or down from where it's written. So again, now we're in the bass clef, which is a fancy letter F. Excuse me. And middle C is the one ledger line above that. The line that the bass clef is on is F, and so middle C down, B, A, G, F is note 33. Then go down to the A below that. 33 is F, E, D, C, B, A. So we're looking at this note, and then add the flat. We're looking at this black note. Now we get the number for that black note, 21, 22, 23, 24. But it's not that if this didn't have the 8VB, it would be note 24, but we need to jump down one whole octave way down low. Now it's 9, 10, 11, 12, note number 12. So it's a very low note on the keyboard, just as this was a very high note on the keyboard. And that's basically how you do how you do that one. You just have to be really methodical and follow all of those steps. Yeah, and again, there's many of them to help you really drill and learn the assignment or learn the concept. So that's what I would say for that one. Is there anything else we should go over for Unit 1?
We can see if there's anything else in the Piazza forum. We had a student ask if they could use YouTube videos in the first discussion, and absolutely you can do that. We want people to feel like, you know, that you'll be fine in this course, and of course if you have problems, just reach out to us. So
I see a question. Sorry, I see a question from Lauren about memorizing notes on the staff. Great question. When we memorize notes on the staff to make flashcards, do we need to know them both bass and treble clef? Yes, very much so. And that's one of the things, as Stephen was saying, sometimes if you do have some musical experience and you play, like, for example, the violin, you may be really solid on the treble clef, but not so much on the bass clef, or vice versa if you're a tuba player. But in this course, you need to know both fluently. So you may spend a little more time learning one or the other, or if you're new to all of this, you'll learn both equally. But definitely, if you're making flashcards and all of that, you need to include the entire. And a way to think about that is, I'll share again really quickly. Where did it go? Yeah. Tell me if you're looking at the right staff, the right window. Whoops. The grand staff, where is that one? Yeah, look in this lesson. If you think of it not as two separate staves, treble and bass, but one big system, I love this graphic because it shows you the whole system. Yeah.
Robin, dog memes and cat schemes.
What?
Here are the best dog tweets of 2019. I think you're not showing the tab.
What?
I think you're showing the wrong tab.
Oh, sorry. Oops.
Yeah, I'm looking at dog memes and cat schemes, which is
sorry.
really intriguing.
This is a kind of a cool thing called meta filter, but sorry, that was totally my bad. Here.
Yeah, I just gives me a window into where you spend your time.
Well, I actually haven't looked at that in ages. I leave lots of tabs open.
Yeah.
So I forgot. But
but what other tabs do you have open?
Alternate social media site.
Oh, okay.
That's better than Facebook, anyway.
Oh, okay.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
Can you now see? Can you now see a beautiful graphic showing the grand staff and the keyboard?
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, Stephen made that. Anyway, so I was attempting to
Self-praise.
say, so I was attempting to say this shows that the entire kind of range of well, not the entire range because it keeps going down and up higher, but effectively the full range of notes that you need to know. And it shows beautifully how the middle C is right in the middle, and then the F and the G of the treble and bass clef sit below and above, and they can be written in different staves and so on. So I hope that answers your question, Lauren. But let us know if you have follow-ups.
Yeah, and spending time memorizing those notes, I would say that if you spend a couple hours and really, or over the course of a week or two, I mean, you don't want to try to cram it, right? Studies have shown that what they call interleaved practice works best. So do it for 15 minutes, then the next day do 15 minutes, next day do 15 minutes. If you do that for a week or two, you'll get easier and easier and easier. It's called cognitive easing. You'll actually literally write new synapses in your brain to identify those things easier. And I guarantee that every hour you spend doing that will save you multiple hours as you move forward. It will just make your life so much easier. So I applaud all those who want to get that nailed down. And sometimes it comes up in video games. You have to play little tunes on some rock. You ever play a video game and one of the puzzles is music notation? No, that's just me.
I don't know.
I think that's something about the types of video games, escape room video games. Well, class, I think we're going to call it quits. But it's been lovely having you all on.
Just for tonight, not for the semester.
Yes, just for tonight. So if you have questions about Unit 1, or you'd like to reach out to us about some other issue or something else that's going on, we're happy to take your email, just as long as you tell us what section you're in. All right? Tell us what section you're in, please. There's so many of you. It's crazy. So be patient, keep bugging us, and tell us what section you're in. So good night from Professor Wilcox.
Good night from Dr. McClellan, Professor McClellan.
Well, or Steve, whatever.
Yeah, we're both.
Because I'm not writing Professor Wilcox at the bottom of those emails. It's going to be Stephen.
We have fancy doctorates, but you can call us whatever you'd like.
Yeah, it's fine. We're good. All right, talk to you later.
Good night.
Good night, all.